This story begins in one of those ordinary places where everyone is looking for peace, but it is here that different worlds often collide. One of the greatest boxers of our time, Mike Tyson, was no longer the man who went into the ring with aggression. Now he was looking for something else: peace, understanding, the opportunity to be just a man among ordinary people. And so he goes to a bar, where everything changes in an instant. What was supposed to be an ordinary evening turns into a test for each of the participants. One conflict, one injustice, one policeman who lost his humanity, and a man who couldn't pass by because he had more than just strength. What happens when two worlds, the world of violence and the world of forgiveness, will they meet at the most unexpected moment? This is a story about the importance of our choices and the impact we can have on each other. Mike Tyson walked into the bar looking for a quiet place to in the evening. His life had changed over the past few years. He was no longer the unstoppable fighter who was always in the spotlight, ready for the next fight. The boxer who had once won a title now sought to find a different meaning in his existing reality. Los Angeles became his home, where he tried to be a simple man like everyone else. The bar wasn't the best place to be quiet, but he wasn't looking for peace in the silence that evening. It was a place where he could hear voices, watch people, feel the atmosphere. In the bar, among the loud conversations and laughter, Tyson became invisible. He didn't want to attract attention, but as always happens, sometimes even the quietest place turns into a battlefield. Tyson did not immediately notice what was happening behind the bar, where a group of young people were arguing with a police officer who was clearly aggressive. At first he thought, "I thought it was a minor misunderstanding," as often happens in such places, but soon realized that the situation was much worse. The policeman stood in the corner, addressing the young men with such a prejudiced attitude that it was impossible not to notice. His manner of speaking, his gaze, all this showed that he was not just reacting to the behavior of the group, but also bringing his own prejudices to the surface. His words and gestures were becoming more and more dismissive by the minute, aggressive. Tyson realized that the situation could quickly get out of, and it was not just a misunderstanding. It was hatred looking for a way out. He knew how emotions can quickly go to extremes. Tyson was no longer the type to lash out at people, no longer the type to throw punches in fights. But experience had taught him that sometimes, to avoid a tragedy, you need to intervene at the right, not letting emotions take over the situation. He had no desire to get involved in conflicts or engage in the education of outsiders. But what was happening violated his own beliefs. It was a moment when Mike could not ignore everything. He had his own wisdom, his own ability to see beyond the surface. He realized that this man, the policeman, was not just aggressive, but also blinded by his own beliefs, which he may no longer be able to fight. It was hard to predict what had led him to this attitude. Was it hatred of people of color? Or was it simply uncertainty and fear of what he could not change in his life? Mike did not want this situation to continue. His presence did not go unnoticed. The calmness with which he approached the situation was not due to force or aggression. It was the power of inner peace. Tyson simply stood between people who were ready for conflict and those who were already at the end of their rope. He did not seek aggression, did not seek truth through quarrels. He was just there to show that even in a situation like this, it is possible to find a way to peace. The policeman could have, if Mike had been an ordinary man, he would not have noticed him. But for him, Tyson was more than just a man. His former glory, his strength, his past left no room for underestimation. And this, in turn, made the policeman back down, although he did not immediately understand why. Everyone in the bar felt a change. It became even quieter. The tension that had been filling the space began to ease. And although no one realized what had happened, everyone felt that nothing would be the same as before. For a moment, everyone was different. Even Mike himself, who did not know how this moment would change his attitude to the world around him. Mike Tyson stood in silence, watching the situation slowly calm down. His understanding of how important moments change people's lives was deep and real. Those standing around him did not see him as just a former champion. They saw a man who, despite her fame, remained in the same space with them, not distinguishing herself. Everyone felt that Mike did not come here to be a hero. He came simply as a person who understands the importance of every moment. Time seemed to stand still. The tension in the air gradually subsided, and the atmosphere in the bar changed. Everyone standing in that corner gradually began to calm down, even the policeman, who had been absolutely sure he was right. However, it was this moment that changed his view of the situation. Mike was just present. He wasn't demanding anything. He wasn't trying to make anyone feel less important or significant. He didn't want to be a judge. His wisdom was to get people to stop, to look at the situation from a different perspective. It was not a battle for victory, it was a battle for change, which comes through inner awareness. And all those who witnessed this change felt how important it is sometimes to just be there, to be present and change the course of events not with a word or an action, but just by being there. If Mike hadn't come up, if he hadn't taken this path, would the situation have been the same? Would the policeman have become policeman he became after that moment? Would the bar have been the same after everything calmed down? Mike Tyson was not looking for gratitude. He was not looking for fame. He was only looking for understanding. He came there, not to change the world, but to show that even in such moments, you can find an opportunity for self-improvement, for finding peace. He stood there, watching the events unfold, and did not ask questions others might have. His place here was clear. He was part of this moment, part of the changes, and even if it was only for a short time, it was of great importance. Tyson remained standing in the bar, watching the situation gradually calm down. The air, which had been full of aggression just a few minutes ago, was now heavy but calm. People returned to their tables, and only the policeman, who could not understand what had happened, stood there as if frozen in time. Mike felt that the moment had changed him. He wasn't looking for heroism. He wasn't trying to draw attention to himself, but deep down he knew that this was his role, to be there where no physical strength was needed, just presence. Sometimes being great doesn't mean being the strongest. Sometimes it means just standing by and letting things unfold. The feeling of inner peace did not leave him even after everyone returned to their normal routines. Mike felt like the invisible connection between him and the place where he stood changed. It seemed that this brief moment could change something more than just the atmosphere in the bar. Perhaps it was more than he could have imagined. But changing the world starts with small things, with choosing not to be part of something that was wrong. The policeman who had just tried to ignite the conflict now stood silent, swallowing his own words. Mike noticed his movements, which had become more calm, as if he were searching for answers to his own questions. And that's what caught Tyson's attention. The policeman's gaze became less aggressive, though not without distrust. The policeman began to feel lost, like someone who doesn't know how to react. He was as if he was off track, not knowing what to do next. And it was as another confirmation that Mike made the right move. Some people would have ignored these subtle changes. They would have just left it at that. But Mike was someone who saw more than most. He saw this moment not as a change in the behavior of a police officer, but also as a chance for each of us to reflect on how we react to the events around us. Can we change the situation not through force, but through understanding? And although there was no dramatic scene or open struggle, Mike realized that this moment was significant for everyone. He was thinking about how each of us can take a small but important step toward change. No matter how much the police officer changed now, no matter how much he tried to understand why he felt these changes in himself, this situation had already done its job. And even if it's just one of those moments that no one will notice, it could be the beginning of something bigger. Change doesn't always come through big actions. Sometimes they come after one gesture, after one look, after one moment when everything in life falls into place. Mike was not looking for fame or recognition. He knew that most people would not even be able to understand why he did what he did. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that he didn't let it go. He didn't become part of the conflict. He just stood there to show another way. Mike Tyson felt like others are beginning to understand. He noticed that even some of those who watched they are now thinking about the situation. It was the moment when he realized that you can change the situation not only through big gestures, but also through unnoticeable, small acts. He did not demand anything in return. His presence became a kind of litmus test for changes in the minds of others. And this effect was the greatest in achievement. Mike stayed in the bar for a while longer. He sat in the corner, watching people gradually return to their normal lives. And that was the moment when he felt real, without all the awards, without all the titles. He was just a man among other men, and that was more than he could have ever hoped for. He knew that his presence could have changed the course of events, but what happened in that moment was even more important to him. He may not have changed the world, but he changed that bar. And that was a huge step. While Tyson was sitting there, he was thinking about how each of us, by making decisions in difficult situations, can change not only our lives, but also the lives of others. We are often afraid to take a step back, to stop and think before we act. But Mike realized that sometimes this is the most important moment. If he hadn't stopped the policeman, if he hadn't done what he did, would any of those in the bar have changed? Would they have realized that change starts with us? Although everyone in the bar returned to their usual conversations and laughter, Mike felt that what had just happened would not be forgotten. It would leave a mark on everyone who was there, even if no one could see it. Because real change often remains invisible to the eye, but deep in the heart of each of us, it changes everything. The policeman still didn't seem to know how to behave after that moment. He stood there, silent, and did not even try to continue his mission. What had changed in him? Was he really realized what was about to happen? Tyson sat there wondering if this moment would help the policeman change, even a little. This question remained in his mind even as he left the bar. It was a moment of change. A moment when sometimes the greatest victory is to do nothing but witness others change. And Mike Tyson realized that. He realized that real power is not always about punching. Sometimes it's the power of being present and allowing someone else to see the world differently. Mike left the bar, but the heavy atmosphere created by the conflict did not leave him even after he left place. He walked the streets of Los Angeles, thinking about what had happened. The situation with the police officer left him with many questions. What changes will occur in a person after such a moment? Can a single gesture really change someone's mind? Or is it just a temporary effect that will dissipate over time? For Tyson, this situation was significant, although he was not looking for recognition or fame for his actions. It was the moment when he realized that even the smallest changes can be powerful. Mike kept walking, feeling it hard to shake off the feeling that he had done something important. His steps were slow but steady. He was in no hurry, because he realized that there was still a lot to think about. His thoughts went back to the policeman who had tried to create a conflict yesterday. What had happened to him after Tyson had stopped his aggression? Had this man changed even a little? Mike knew that you can't change people's beliefs overnight, but maybe he had at least planted a seed of doubt in the policeman's heart. The next day, when Mike met up with one of his old friends, he decided to share his thoughts. Mike's friends had always known that he was not like other celebrities. There was a depth to him that could not be seen behind his physical strength and famous name. This time, however, he spoke with particular seriousness. He told his friend about the situation in the bar, how it all started and how it ended. Although his friend considered his actions heroic, Tyson disagreed. He knew he was not looking for heroism. His action was spontaneous. He just did what he felt was right. At times, Mike wondered why people usually react to conflict in this way. They are either afraid to intervene or afraid of the consequences. But, in fact, most conflicts could be avoided if each of us had a little more control over our emotions. At that moment, Mike decided that he would think more acting, even in the most difficult situations. He knew that if people started this, the world around them would change. Every day Mike decided that he would no longer look at people as winners or losers. He would no longer judge others for their actions or past mistakes. Instead, he decided to focus on how to help people find a way to change within themselves. It was a new path for him. Although he was not convinced that he would become a great teacher or mentor, he realized that it was important not only to change himself, but also to help others become better. Over the next few days, Mike began to actively help those who approached him. They could be young boxers who aspired to become like him, or ordinary people who were just looking for advice. All of them were willing to listen to Mike, and he began to realize how many important lessons he could teach people without resorting to fighting or force. His words began to resonate in the hearts of others, and while it wasn't popular or loud, Mike felt he was on the right track. This path was not easy. Sometimes he had to face great difficulties, especially with people who were not yet ready to change or who resisted his words. But even in such situations, Mike remained calm. He knew that everything that was happening in his life had a purpose. Sometimes he just had to wait until people started to realize what Mike was trying to tell them. And even when this process was delayed, he did not stop. At one of the next training sessions, Mike saw a young boxer who had suffered a serious injury. It was the moment when Mike realized that maybe this injury was not accidental. It became a kind of wake-up call for that young man. Mike talked to him about the importance of not only physical fitness, but also mental fitness. Many boxers focus on their strength and technique, but it's really important that they are prepared for the internal challenges that come their way. This moment marked another milestone on Mike's journey. He realized that he could actually help a lot of people. And although this path was not easy, he was ready to go all the way to the end to really change himself and the world around him. Mike Tyson was going through an important stage in his life after what happened in the bar. His reflections and experiences did not leave him calm. He could no longer ignore the fact that he wanted to change not only his life, but also help change the lives of others. Although this path was not easy, he was ready for the challenge. Mike felt that he could now do more than just sit on the laurels of the past achievements. He decided it was time to use his experience and wisdom to become an example for others. Every day Mike met new people who asked him for help. These were not only young boxers who wanted to get into the ring, but also ordinary people who were looking for inspiration and motivation for his life. Mike realized that even if he couldn't change the world, he could change at least one life. And that was enough. A few days after the bar incident, Mike received a call from a former police officer with whom he had conflict. The policeman told him that his life had changed. He began to think about his beliefs, how he treated people, and why he did it. This call was a landmark for Mike. He realized that even that small change in his behavior, even that 1 second when he decided to intervene in the situation, had a big impact. This police officer said that he started working on himself and even participated in several programs to develop emotional intelligence. He was no longer the same, and Mike felt that this call was a confirmation that change was possible. It was the moment when he realized that even though the changes in his life were small, they did have an impact on others. Mike continued his journey, using the experiences and lessons he learned from his life to help those in need. He began working with young people, offering them not only technical boxing skills, but also important life lessons about how to cope with difficulties, how not to give up, and how to find strength in themselves. His training became not only physical, but also psychological, because Mike realized that fighting in the ring is only part of what is needed to be successful in life. Soon after, Mike received an invitation to speak at a charity event where he was asked to share his experience and talk about his life. It was the moment when Mike realized that he was no longer just a boxer, he had become a mentor and role model for many. At the event, he told his story about how he got his popularity, how he went through difficult times, and how he changed after many trials. He spoke about the importance of forgiveness, about how important it is not to stop in the face of difficulties, about how to find strength in yourself, even when it seems that you can't go on. Mike's words inspired people. He saw how many people began to change their views, how people began to discover new opportunities for themselves. Although Mike was not looking for fame, he realized that his story mattered. It became an inspiration for those who were going through hard times, for those who were looking for a way to change but didn't know where to start. One day, after one of these events, he came to a middle-aged man approached him. He was a simple laborer with no great ambition or fame, but his eyes were full of gratitude. The man told Mike that his words had changed his life. He told him how all his life he was going to give up, how he felt that he was worthless, that he would never achieve anything great. But after hearing Mike's words about the importance of not giving up, he decided to start a new life. He enrolled in courses, changed jobs, and started working on himself. It was a victory not only for the man, but also for Mike, who realized that his role was not just to be a champion in the ring, but to help others succeed. Mike wasn't looking for fame. He was looking for an opportunity to leave a legacy that would help others. He realized that even his small actions could have a big impact on others. He realized that it wasn't just about winning in the ring, but also about helping others become better people. Every day Mike felt himself changing more and more. He was no longer the fighter who was only looking for glory. He became a man who found strength not in striking, but in understanding, in tolerance, and in changing himself and others. And although he was not perfect, he realized that change begins with himself. His story is proof that each of us can change, even if the past seems difficult, and even if it seems that change is impossible. And so Mike realized the main thing. He had found his true purpose in life, and it was not in titles, but in helping others find their strength, their faith, and their opportunities for change. Was an important stage in his transformation for Mike Tyson. His experiences and the reflections after what happened in the bar did not leave him calm. He could no longer ignore the fact that he wanted to change not only his life, but also help change the lives of others. Although this path was not easy, he was ready for the challenge. Mike felt that he could now do more than just sit on the laurels of his past accomplishments. He decided that it was time to use his experience and wisdom to become an example for others. Every day Mike met new people who asked him for help. These were not only young boxers who wanted to get into the ring, but also ordinary people who were looking for inspiration and motivation for his life. Mike realized that even if he couldn't change the world, he could change at least one life. And that was enough. A few days after the bar incident, Mike received a call from a former police officer with whom he had conflict. The policeman told him that his life had changed. He began to think about his beliefs, how he treated people, and why he did it. This call was a landmark for Mike. He realized that even that small change in his behavior, even that 1 second when he decided to intervene in the situation, had a big impact. This police officer said that he started working on himself and even participated in several programs to develop emotional intelligence. He was no longer the same, and Mike felt that this call was a confirmation that change was possible. It was the moment when he realized that even though the changes in his life were small, they did have an impact on others. Mike continued his journey, using the experiences and lessons he learned from his life to help those in need. He began working with young people, offering them not only technical boxing skills, but also important life lessons about how to cope with difficulties, how not to give up, and how to find strength in themselves. His training became not only physical, but also psychological, because Mike realized that a fight in the ring is only part of what it takes to be successful in life. Soon after, Mike received an invitation to speak at a charity event where he was asked to share his experience and talk about his life. That was the moment when Mike realized that he was no longer just a boxer. He had become a mentor and role model for many. At the event, he told his story about how he got his popularity, how he went through difficult times, and how he changed after many trials. He spoke about the importance of forgiveness, about how important it is not to stop in the face of difficulties, about how to find strength in yourself, even when it seems that you can't go on. Mike's words inspired people. He saw how many people began to change their views, how people began to discover new opportunities for themselves. Although Mike was not looking for fame, he realized that his story mattered. It became an inspiration for those who were going through hard times, for those who were looking for a way to change but didn't know where to start. One day, after one of these events, he came to a middle-aged man approached him. He was a simple laborer, no great ambition or fame, but his eyes were full of gratitude. The man told Mike that his words had changed his life. He told him how all his life he was going to give up, how he felt that he was worthless, that he would never achieve anything great. But after hearing Mike's words about the importance of not giving up, he decided to start a new life. He enrolled in courses, changed his job, and started working on himself. It was a victory not only for the man, but also for Mike, who realized that his role was not just to be a champion in the ring, but to help others succeed. Mike wasn't looking for fame. He was looking for an opportunity to leave a legacy that would help others. He realized that even his small actions could have a big impact on others. He realized that it wasn't just about winning in the ring, but also about helping others become better people. Every day Mike felt himself changing more and more. He was no longer the fighter who sought only glory. He became a man who found strength not in striking, but in understanding, in tolerance, and in changing himself and others. And although he was not perfect, he realized that change begins with himself. His story is proof that each of us can change, even if the past seems difficult, and even if it seems that change is impossible. And so Mike realized the main thing. He had found his true purpose in life, and it was not in titles, but helping others find their strength, their faith, and their opportunities for change. Mike Tyson realized that his life path was no longer the After all the trials he had gone through and the changes that had taken place in his life, he felt that his mission was not only to achieve his own goals, but also to help others. But can you really change the world, or even just change someone who is very confused about their beliefs and prejudices? This was a question Mike asked himself after every new experience. His meetings with different people, his recent training, his charity events, all of these were part of a bigger path. A path where he began to pay more attention to how he affects those around him. One day, while sitting in his office after a training session, Mike had a thought. He realized that the biggest changes don't happen through great deeds, but through constant work on oneself and on other people. And that was the moment when he decided to really change his attitude towards the world. He no longer wanted to be just a famous fighter. He didn't want to be carried away by his past achievements anymore. He wanted to be a person who could contribute to something more than just winning in the ring. He started spending more time with people who were looking for help, talking to those who were going through difficulties, and, most importantly, not to judge them for their mistakes. Mike began working with young people who aspired to become champions, but also with those who were experiencing internal conflicts, difficulties, or were drawn into the world of crime. He understood that everyone has the potential for change, even if it doesn't always appear from the outside. Was obvious. At the same time, he realized that not everyone wants to change, not everyone is ready for it. And this was a hard lesson for him. The satisfaction of helping is mixed with disappointment when you see that others do not want to change. One day, during a training session with a group of young men, one of them approached Mike with a question. The guy was from a dysfunctional family and had gone through some hard times. He told Mike how hard it was for him to find the right path and feel supported. At the same time, he began to show some interest in boxing, but many others, he had doubts about his abilities. Mike listened to him carefully and then said, "Life is a struggle. The fight you are fighting may not always be in the ring, but you can win it if you stay true to your principles. If you change your attitude, the results will change." Mike's words made a big impression on the guy. He felt that he had a chance, and now he was motivated. They worked together, and Mike noticed that this young man was changing. His determination and confidence grew, and this was a real confirmation for Mike that change is possible. Mike began to see that he could change lives not through big things, but through small but important steps. What he did for this young man was not something grand, but he felt that it was exactly what was needed to change this young man's life. And it made him think, isn't that the real purpose in life? What's important is not to achieve great victories, but to help others get up, to help them see that it is possible to change their lives if they put in the effort. This realization was an important moment for Mike. He realized that now his true mission is not to leave a big mark in the ring, but to help people find the path to self-realization, to change, to become better people. And even if it is just one small step for everyone, it will be a big step for humanity. It's an easy path, and Mike didn't always know if he could help everyone he met. But he realized that not every change had to be big. The most important thing was to make this one, the first step. Although Mike remained a man who had experienced many difficulties and pain in his life, he found new meaning helping others. His successes in the ring, which once seemed to be the greatest achievements in his life, gradually lost their meaning. With each new step, he realized more and more that his true power lies not in his punches, but in becoming someone who changes people's lives for the better. If one look or one gesture can change the course of events, then every new day was a chance for Mike to do more. And this chance was the greatest achievement of his life, helping others find their strength within themselves,